Hi there, my name is Moray. I'm a fashion designer who's trying to learn as much about history as possible. Today I'm introducing you to the new series I'm doing about the partners behind some of the most famous people in antiquity. Today we're going to be covering the woman who made Mark Antony, Fulvia. Cleopatra is the most famous partner of Mark Antony, one of the Roman Republic's most, well, controversial figures. Fulvia truly is the woman who ended up making him and advancing his career.
She had a theory that behind every great man there was a great woman. She also was thoroughly convinced that she was great, and that all I needed to qualify was guidance on her part. She worked hard at it. Too hard.
It still doesn't prove her theory was completely wrong.
During vast waves of the ancient Roman Empire, the women were hidden from public life and indoors supporting their husbands, and that's why we will be utilizing Plutarch's parallels in order to tell us information about some of the wives of the most famous Roman citizens. Whilst men from the patrician classes, aka the ruling classes of Rome, lived a very public life, women were expected to stay at home and practice virtue, and when out in public support their husbands. However, a lot of their scheming was done indoors, and Fulvia is proof of that. So let's get into the subject of today's video, Mark Antony. Now, Marcus Antonius was a key player in the Roman Republic and known for his political prowess and military acumen. However, he was very well known for creating a lot of enemies, including Cicero, and obviously Julius Shakespeare, in which the Idols of March is one of the most famous historical events in history. What does Plutarch's Parallels say about Fulvia? Well, Plutarch's Parallels states that regarding Fulvia, that she was a woman who wanted to rule a ruler and command a commander. It literally states that. I mean, how much of a dom is she? No. Fulvia was born into a notable family during the Roman Republic. Fulvia was married 3 times. The first person she was married to was a man called Claudius Pulcher. He is a man who, to be honest, had a lasting legacy during the Roman Republic, including one of his followers was Mark Antony, which we'll get into later. She had 2 children with Pulcher. She had a son, and then she had a daughter, Claudia, who ended up marrying Rome's first emperor, Augustus Octavian. Her first husband, Claudius Pulcher, was a charismatic and controversial figure. He had control of a lot of gangs, he had a lot of sway in the Roman Republic, but he also had a lot of critics, including Appian and including Cicero. Cicero was a statesman, but he was also known as being an incredible speaker. He made a lot of speeches that touched the masses, and that's why Cicero was so dangerous. However, he conflicted with a lot of people, including, well, Mark Antony. When Claudius Pulcher ended up dying due to a crowd brawl, that's when Pompey seized power in Rome, and Fulvia was a widow. She ended up having another husband, her second marriage. This is when Fulvia married Gaius Scribonius Curio. However, that marriage did not last, but she did have 1 son. This is when she met Mark Antony. Fulvia reportedly was totally in love with Mark Antony. Mark Antony was quite a big fan of her first husband, Claudius Pulcher. The Roman Republic at the time wasn't like how we look at the empire with the Senate. Essentially, gangs and lawlessness were taking place at a large level. Mark Antony also had beef. No, I'm not going to say that. But he did though. Mark Antony also had a rival in Cicero.
These being the words of Marcus Tullius Cicero. When I was a young man, I defended our state. As an old man, I shall not abandon it. I give sincere thanks to Mark Antony, who has generously presented me with the most promising theme imaginable. I address you directly, Antony. Please listen as if you... Go on. Please listen as if you were sober and intelligent and not a drink-sodden, sex-addled wreck. You are certainly not without accomplishments. It is a rare man who can boast of becoming a bankrupt before even coming of age. You have brought upon us war, pestilence, and destruction. You are Rome's Helen of Troy.
Mark Antony, as we've spoken before, was a fan of Claudius Pulcher, Fulvia's first husband. And Cicero was so critical, not only now of Pulcher, but of Mark Antony, who was married to Fulvia. Cicero was so critical of Fulvia and Mark Antony's union, he was even making speeches about them. Mark Antony kept himself surrounded by Claudius Pulcher's supporters, and Fulvia and Mark Antony were a Roman power couple. It wasn't just romantic and passionate, but it was a solid political force. After Julius Caesar was assassinated during the Ides of March in 44 BC, that's when Mark Antony really rose to prominence, and Cicero was not happy about that. You see, Cicero was all about traditional Roman values, and Mark Antony wanted something new. In 43 BC, that's when Mark Antony created the second Roman triumvirate, and he teamed up with Octavian, future emperor of the Roman Empire. Octavian ended up marrying Claudia, who was Fulvia's daughter from her first marriage to Claudius Pulcher. Already we can see this family with huge influence at a time where the empire was starting to rise. In December of that year, loyalist soldiers to Mark Antony kidnapped Cicero and cut off his head. That's gonna need a trigger warning. His head was cut off and shown in the Roman Forum just to send a message to anyone who opposed the new alliance between Antony and Octavian. Now then, Cassius Dio, we're going to talk about the historian Cassius Dio. So we went into Plutarch a little bit. We're going to talk about Cassius Dio, and he ended up writing a lot of work about the empire. Cassius Dio has the juiciest anecdote, and Bea covers this a lot in her book.
Spectacular. Give me 14 of them right now.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
According to Cassius Dio, Fulvia was spiteful. She took Cicero's head, a rampant critic of her and her husband. She took her hairpin out of her hair and placed the hairpins in the tongue of Cicero so he could eat his own words. However, whilst Fulvia had a career as a fabulous wife and fabulous game player during the Roman Empire, when Octavian started seizing power, her power started seizing itself. Shortly after the assassination of Julius Caesar, we see that Mark Antony meets Cleopatra.
Not this.
And Antony basically created, during this partnership, not only a strong political alliance, but one of the biggest love stories in human history.
Together have been the happiest of my life.
We lived, didn't we?
We did.
Tensions then escalated when Octavian divorced Fulvia's daughter, Claudia, and Octavian wanted Fulvia out. Antony was upset about how involved she was with politics, and she fell ill and she passed away. After Fulvia's death, Mark Antony used Fulvia as a scapegoat to reconcile with Octavian, and despite reconciling with Octavian, he never regained his influence that he had when he was with Fulvia. She was a woman who took no thought for spinning or housekeeping, nor would she deign to bear sway over a man of private station. but she wished to rule a ruler and command a commander. Therefore, Cleopatra was in debt to Fulvia for teaching Antony to endure a woman's sway. While Fulvia was not seen as the ideal Roman woman who obeyed chastity and virtues, she was an excellent game player. That's why we need to remember her more. Okay guys, I'm going to be making a series about this, including partners. I'm going to be making a series regarding some of the most famous partners of political leaders, so let the series continue. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye bye!